In the Green Nation, there are stories you just can't make up. They're born straight from the heart of the city. And today, Philadelphia wrote another one of those chapters that gives every fan chills. One of the greatest symbols of this uniform is back. The warrior who's already given everything for this team returns for one more battle. And tell me, is there anything that fits this city more than coming back when everyone thought it was over? This is the kind of moment that makes every fan stop and take a deep breath. The kind of news that reminds us why we love this team. Because here, nobody quits, nobody forgets where they came from, and nobody lets the fire die out. The heart of the defense is back where it always belonged. So, go ahead and hit that like, share this video with the whole fan base, and tell me in the comments, go Birds. I believe, my friends, Brandon Graham, the man who has been the very embodiment of what it means to wear midnight green, is officially coming out of retirement to rejoin the Eagles. You heard that right. The longest tenured player in franchise history, the heartbeat of that defensive line, the emotional spark of 2 championship runs, is back where he belongs. And honestly, doesn't it just feel right? For 15 seasons, Graham has been the definition of a Philadelphia Eagle. Drafted all the way back in 2010, he went through everything this city loves in an athlete. Early struggles, doubt from the outside, whispers that he was a draft mistake. Remember when everyone compared him to Earl Thomas? That storyline hung over his head for years, but instead of folding, he built himself brick by brick into one of the most respected veterans in the league. He fought through injuries, changes in coaches and schemes, and every kind of adversity imaginable. And now, at 37, he's coming back to give this team and this city one more push. The news started to pick up steam early this morning. Reporters from every major outlet, John Clark, Ian Rappaport, Jay Glazer, were all hinting that the Eagles were serious about bringing Graham back. Then Adam Schefter dropped the confirmation. The deal is being finalized, and BG could be back on the field as early as Sunday, Week 8 against the Giants. It all happened fast, but it shouldn't surprise anyone who's been paying attention. Graham never really stepped away from the game. Even during his short retirement, he stayed connected, doing media work, keeping in shape, and leaving that locker in the NovaCare complex open, just in case. And make no mistake, this isn't a ceremonial move. The Eagles' defensive line has talent, but it's young and thin in experience. They've lost key contributors like Josh Uche and Milton Williams, and they're struggling to get to the quarterback. Philadelphia ranks near the bottom of the league in sacks, 28th out of 32 teams with only 11 total. Their top edge producer right now is Zadarius Smith, who's retired.
Followed by Patrick Johnson, a player on the roster bubble. That's a problem. You can have all the potential in the world, but without consistent pressure, it's hard to win in this league. So, what do you do when your defense needs an edge and a voice? You call back the guy who helped define both. Graham's return gives the Eagles exactly what they've been missing: leadership, experience, and grit. You're talking about a guy who's 3rd all-time in franchise sacks behind Reggie White and Trent Cole, number 1 in games played, and one of only 4 players in team history with 2 Super Bowl rings. That's elite company. When he retired, it felt like the end of an era, but now, maybe it's one last encore. Sure, he's not going to play every down. Nobody expects that. But 15 to 20 snaps of classic Brandon Graham energy, that could make all the difference. Because this team doesn't just need production, it needs presence. And there's nobody in that locker room who commands respect like BG. This move also says something about how the Eagles organization thinks. They know they needed help off the edge, but they also know the power of culture. Young guys like Nolan Smith and Jordan Davis are still developing, and having someone like Graham in those meeting rooms, on the practice field, and in those late-night film sessions, that's invaluable. His connection with Jalen Hurts, his work ethic, his understanding of what it means to represent this city, all of that makes him more than just another body in the rotation. He's an anchor. Now, from a pure football standpoint, there are reasons for optimism. Even last year, before his retirement, Graham wasn't washed. He was productive, smart, and efficient. Pro Football Focus gave him an overall grade of 78.6. That's well above average for any defensive lineman, let alone one in his mid-30s. His run defense grade was 80.1, and his pass rush grade sat at 71.9. He notched 4 sacks, 20 total pressures, and was disruptive in limited snaps. In the Super Bowl, he even pressured Patrick Mahomes on multiple plays, showing that the burst was still there. So yes, Father Time is undefeated, but Brandon Graham hasn't exactly surrendered yet. And let's not forget, the end of his career didn't go the way many thought it would. He tore his triceps late in the season, fought his way back just to re-injure it in the Super Bowl. After that, It felt like he was ready to ride off into the sunset, smiling with 2 Lombardi trophies by his side. But deep down, it's easy to see how unfinished business might have been eating at him. When you've still got something left to give, when your body's strong, your heart's in it, and your locker's still waiting, that itch never really goes away. So now, the story comes full circle. The same player who once almost got cut after a rough start is now walking back through the same doors as one of the greatest to ever wear the uniform. It's poetic. It's Philadelphia. Tough beginnings, relentless fight, and a comeback no one will forget. You can't script it better than that. But the question now is, what does this really mean for the Eagles moving forward? Is Graham's return just a sentimental reunion, or could it be the spark that reignites this defense? What happens next will tell us a lot about both the player and the team. Because while this reunion feels emotional, the Eagles wouldn't have made the move if they didn't believe Brandon Graham still had real football left in him. This organization is not in the business of charity signings. Howie Roseman, for all his sentimental side when it comes to keeping core veterans around, always moves with purpose. And the purpose here is clear. This defense needs production, presence, and identity. The truth is, this front seven hasn't looked like the dominant force we've come to expect in recent years. The interior, led by Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, is solid. But the edges? They've been inconsistent. And that's where BG comes in. His snap count will be limited, no question. At 37, nobody wants or expects him to play 50 snaps a game. But the quality of those 15 to 20 reps can shift momentum in ways that don't always show up in the box score. The energy, the leadership, the ability to set the edge against the run, to push the pocket just enough to make quarterbacks uncomfortable, those are the subtle things that change games. And for a team that ranks near the bottom of the league in sacks, every bit of disruption counts. Last season, even after all the injuries and years of wear, Graham was still a high-level player by the numbers. PFF gave him positive grades across every category, 78.6 overall, 80.1 against the run, and nearly 72 as a pass rusher. On just 168 pass rush snaps, he tallied 20 pressures, 4 sacks, and 12 defensive stops. That's not a guy who's done. That's a guy who still knows how to win matchups, who still has that first step quickness and that relentless motor that's defined his entire career. When you pair that with his football IQ and his understanding of this defensive system, it's easy to see why the team wanted him back. And the locker room? It's going to feel his presence instantly. Jalen Hurts already said after last week's game that BG's locker was still ready and waiting, and that says it all. You don't just keep a space open unless the door was never truly closed. Players like Hurts, Nolan Smith, and Josh Sweat grew up watching Graham dominate. Now they'll get to share the field and the film room with him again. You can't measure that kind of mentorship. He's a living link between eras, from the Super Bowl team that took down Tom Brady in 2018 to the new generation trying to build their own legacy. From the front office's point of view, the timing also makes sense. The team's depth at defensive end has been stretched thin after losing key contributors. And while the addition of Zadarius Smith helps, the Eagles clearly wanted one more steady veteran voice in that group, someone who knows the culture, knows the city, and understands what it takes to win here. That's why this move feels like more than just a roster decision. It's a message. It says that Philadelphia still believes in its own identity, toughness, resilience, and loyalty. But there's another side to this, the risk. Because as much as we all love the story, football isn't sentimental. Father Time is undefeated, and Graham is coming off 2 triceps tears in less than a year. That's no small thing. The Eagles will need to manage his reps carefully, keep him fresh, and make sure he's physically right before throwing him into game speed. The last thing anyone wants is to see a franchise legend go down again before he gets the chance to finish this story the right way. But judging by everything we've seen from BG, you can bet he wouldn't have agreed to come back unless he felt confident he could still perform at a high level. Think about it. This is the same player who turned a career once labeled a disappointment into one of the greatest redemption arcs in team history. Drafted in 2010, almost traded after early struggles, overshadowed by comparisons to Earl Thomas, and yet, here he is. 2 Super Bowls, a Pro Bowl, top 3 in sacks all time, and now heading into his 16th season in Midnight Green. That's more than a comeback. That's a legacy being rewritten in real time. So the question becomes, what does success look like for Brandon Graham's return? It's not about numbers anymore. It's not about proving he can still be the every down threat he once was. It's about impact, on and off the field. It's about helping this defense rediscover that edge, that identity, that swagger that defined the Eagles at their peak. Because right now, as this team tries to steady itself mid-season, that spark could be the difference between a playoff run and an early exit. The fans feel it, the city feels it, and the players absolutely feel it. There's just something poetic about seeing number 55 back in that locker room, the voice that never stopped talking, the smile that never faded, the leader who always believed there was more left to give. And maybe, just maybe, this move gives Philadelphia exactly what it needs, not just another pass rusher, but a reminder of what made this franchise great in the first place. Because if there's one thing we've learned from watching Brandon Graham over the past decade and a half, it's that he thrives on being counted out. Every time people have questioned him, he's answered. When fans wondered if he was a bust early in his career, he turned into one of the most productive defensive ends in franchise history. When critics said he was too old to keep up, he posted some of his best grades and performances in his mid-30s. When he tore his triceps and everyone thought that might be the end, he came back for a Super Bowl run. And now, after retirement, he's answering one last call to lead again, to give one more season to the city that's become part of who he is. The truth is, this isn't just a football story. It's a Philadelphia story. It's about a man who's always mirrored the spirit of this city, tough, resilient, never satisfied, and always ready to prove something. The same guy who made one of the most iconic plays in Eagles history, that strip sack on Tom Brady, is walking back into the NovaCare complex with the same mission he's always had: to help this team win and to make the people of this city proud. You can't teach that kind of loyalty. You can't replace that kind of heart. And when you think about what this means for the locker room, it's hard not to smile. This team has been through changes, ups and downs, questions about leadership, and uncertainty about identity. Now, they get back one of their emotional anchors, someone who's lived every high and low this organization has seen over the last 15 years. It's not just about sacks or tackles. It's about what happens when you walk into the building and feel that presence again. When the young guys see BG grinding in practice, speaking up in meetings, setting the standard. That's the ripple effect the Eagles are betting on. Maybe this story doesn't end with another Super Bowl parade down Broad Street. Maybe it